Stefanik is going to join us, and we're super excited about that. She's been making the rounds everywhere. The big announcement coming up. And honestly, when you look at Kathy Hochul right now, and the weirdest phenomenon took place where she was trying her best to get some of the excitement, the vitality, the youth, the exuberance of the Mamdani campaign, and they didn't really want her. They didn't want her. They didn't really want her on stage. Even when she finally endorsed Mamdani, the crowd turned on her. And then she said that the boos she claimed that they were saying, "Let's go Bills," which you would think that if you're saying ooh, she would at least lie and say they were saying, "Let's go Buffalo." If it ended with an O, you could at least make that argument. I thought they were saying Bruce Smith. I didn't know the Bruce is what I thought. No, she didn't. She jumped right to that. They booed her everywhere, though. Even in, golfing events. It didn't even matter if it was was it the announcement of the Ryder Cup? When Kathy Hochul was, they made the announcement. Do you remember this? This was at the Ryder Cup. I mean, this is the Golf Network. How could you be How could you be hated at the Ryder Cup?
The Governor of State New York, Kathy Hochul.
I mean, there's no hiding that. There's no hiding that at all. That's how bad it's gotten. So naturally you think, well, it doesn't really matter who the Republicans run because Kathy Hochul, New York State, it's deep, deep blue. What are you going to do? Well, I'll tell you what. You can make that argument in years past. This is not your average Republican candidate. This is a woman in Congress who had her under oath, who every opportunity has had a chance to take a principled stance, whether it was Columbia, whether it was the anti-Semitism, the crazy of Mamdani, socialism, the radicals, energy, gas, the HALT Act, cashless bail. There has been Elise Stefanik the entire time. She's been standing up for the middle class. She's been standing up for union workers and all the other people that joined the new coalition of President Trump. This is not your typical Republican candidate. And now it's final, it's official, and here we have a real race for governor in the state of New York. I welcome Congresswoman Elise Stefanik. Thank you so much for coming on to the program, Buffalo, again.
It is great to be with you, David. It looks like you got some snow.
We got some snow, and our snow plows run on chicken wing grease, allegedly. So there's something to look forward to in the future. We've got a lot of issues here in New York State. One of the things that we brought up in the past is that, it's that ability to get in the fight, have the facts, but be able to stand your ground. We're not apologizing for the way we were raised. We're not apologizing for the way we see New York and the world. And one of the things I find so refreshing about you is that you stand in the breach every single time you have a spotlight on you. And honestly, they all capitulated, whether it was the university presidents that were defending outrageous behavior on campus, and Kathy Hochul herself under oath, caught in lie after lie. There you've been. It's now official. You're running for governor.
I am running for governor, and I'll tell you the outpouring of support all across New York has been tremendous, and it's not just from Republicans and independents. It's traditional Democrats as well who understand that Kathy Hochul bent the knee to the socialists who have taken over New York's Democrat Party because of her weak leadership. And the top two issues I hear, no matter I'm Western New York, on Long Island, in the North Country, or in the city, it's affordability and safety. Under Kathy Hochul's failed leadership, New York is the most unaffordable state in the nation, with the highest taxes, highest energy prices, utility prices, rent, insurance, the list goes on and on. We also are unsafe. If you look at failed bail reform and this revolving door of violent criminals being released on our streets, it's impacting New Yorkers' lives. Just last week, there was a 12-year-old girl who was raped in Brooklyn by a repeat violent offender who was let out because of failed bail reform. He previously had raped an individual. he carjacked, and now this poor 12-year-old is yet another victim because of Kathy Hochul's failed rule. We are not going to run a quiet race this campaign cycle. This is going to be aggressive. It's talking about the issues, and we are going to sweep all across this state. And I can tell you, David, Kathy Hochul is going to lose Western New York. While she squeaked by Erie County in 2022, she will lose her home county, just like we just flipped the town of Hamburg, her hometown, which Republicans won this local election cycle.
You know, this is so fascinating to me because you look at Mamdani and everyone says in Western New York, oh, it's New York City, zany and crazy. But one of the things I'm seeing in the subtext of your messaging is that clearly Hochul it owes something to Mamdani, because that whole endorsement process was so uncomfortable. It was so weird. And she fought for the validation of the socialists and the radicals, and they didn't actually accept her. She doesn't really have a home, does she? But one thing we definitely know now is that Mamdani is controlling Kathy Hochul.
No question, David, and I'll tell you, it's because she's seeing the same polling that we are, and that is among registered Democrats, she can't break 50%. That is the secret that the Democrat operatives are so scared for the media to start to cover. That's why she endorsed Mamdani. And yes, this is New York City, and I say this as a proud upstater. What happens in New York City impacts the economic policy and the tax policies for every single New Yorker. And we all know that Kathy Hochul, election cycle after election cycle, she tries to lie to New Yorkers. She did this previously with tax issues where she said, oh, I'm not going to raise taxes. What did she do after the election? She raised taxes. Very similar to what Cuomo did on fracking, if you recall. A few elections ago said, oh, we're going to keep it open. And then after he won, he put a moratorium on fracking, which is a huge, huge economic mistake. We need to unleash fracking. After Hochul endorsed Mamdani, first, he refused to counter-endorse her, so that says a lot. And then when she was heckled by his supporters calling to raise taxes, she changed her positions in 24 hours and said, oh, I'm open to it. So this is going to be a discussion. It's going to be a lot of issues discussed this campaign. And the reality is Kathy Hochul's an accidental governor. This is not a strong elected official who's gone through tough primaries. She's accidentally there because Cuomo stepped down and he moved up his do-nothing LG, and she happened to be governor when Lee Zeldin ran against her. Now she's despised. And I know you played those clips. She's booed wherever she goes, whether it's on Long Island, at the Ryder Cup, whether it is at hockey games, or whether she does public events in Western New York.
You know, most of the time when people are booed, you can almost argue, well, it's just rambunctious, people that are booing her. But there is something exquisitely booable about Kathy Hochul. And you talk about her accidental governor. She's the accidental congresswoman. She got in because of a crazy double bank shot with special elections and low turnout. When you look at your campaign right now, I mean, I'm trying to think of a state that has the three top issues all being how anyone could even contemplate running for re-election, when you've got the taxation in New York State, the issues with utility bills and electricity in New York State, with Niagara Falls, by the way, we're still having these problems. You've got mass migration of people leaving New York State. And, of course, you've got crime. And these are all happening under the watch of Kathy Hochul and her policies. She hasn't fixed a single problem that she caused. They're self-induced.
They are self-induced. And look, she owns the affordability crisis. She owns the crime crisis. And people aren't leaving New York because of the weather, David. You and I know this. You're from Western New York. I'm from upstate in the North Country. They're leaving because of the policy. She is pushing businesses and families who are desperately escaping failed policies in New York State. I'm glad you pointed out her one term in Congress before she was fired. She was fired, and she owns these high health care prices. It was a disaster when she served in Congress. We're going to fire her after her only complete term as governor. And it's because people want common sense. They want strong leadership. They want to cut taxes. They want to lower energy costs. They want policies when it comes to public safety that supports the police, that pushes back on the defund the police nonsense, that supports our correctional officers who have been just under attack, frankly, from Kathy Hochul and Democrats in Albany. I am a young mom. I have a 4-year-old. I want New York to be a state where he can continue to grow, thrive, and raise his family someday. And so many people feel that they have to leave New York because of Kathy Hochul's policies. So we're getting a lot of support, as you saw when we announced, which I know you were very excited about, as were others. Over 70% of the Republican counties on day one, Conservative Party support on day one as well, county executives across the state. This is moving. We will not have a primary, and Kathy Hochul's facing a primary from her left, her own hand-picked lieutenant governor, who she selected for that job. He has seen her up close, and he understands how weak of a leader she is.
Yeah, I not only see this as an important race, obviously, because the governor's mansion has been dominated by the Democrats for so long. This is truly a renaissance of the New York State GOP. You mentioned just in passing the fact that there's no primary opponent, but that message that sends early on is that this is our candidate. This is our person. We're not going to waste any time, any money, any energy. We're taking this seriously, and we need the time to build that base and assure people that we don't have a repeat of disappointments. Let's be honest, in New York State, that's happened to Republicans. You look at this election in New York City with Mamdani. What are your takeaways for what you're going to be facing when you ask those same people for your vote?
My takeaways is that traditionally a Democrat, the person who wins the Democrat primary gets in the 70% or high 60s. Mamdani barely broke 50%. So what does that mean? Nearly a majority of New York City voters did not want Mamdani, and they do not want Kathy Hochul. That's a lot of traditional Democrats who felt that enough is enough. This is too far gone. This defund the police, pro-criminal, abolish private property, which is his platform, by the way. That's an opportunity for us to build a coalition, not just of Republicans and independents, but Democrats as well. That's what I've done in my district. As you know, David, when I ran for Congress over a decade ago, I was 28 years old, turned 29 over the course of the primary. No one thought I could win. We ended up flipping the district from Democrat to Republican, and this is a district Republicans had spent millions on and had not been able to get it across the finish line. I went on to win by 20 points. We have set records in terms of the margin, putting up some of the strongest margins, not just in the state, but in the entire Northeast. And this is also interesting. We have the highest voter turnout in my district. Why is that important? We know how to inspire those lower propensity voters that sometimes stay home. They're not going to stay home next year because we know how to get them out to vote. People need a reason to turn out to vote. We're going to give them one. We're going to give them an alternative to save the state, and you do that by firing Kathy Hochul.
Well, I'll tell you, the one thing that obviously Elise Stefanik is trending, everyone's super excited now, but here's the one thing that the polls have no ability to calculate: what 10 months of Mayor Mamdani actually represents. And that, to me, is the wild card here. Once we see what is happening to New York under this leadership, and we look at a governor who's absolutely paralyzed now, she can't push back on the person who basically is controlling puppet strings. She can't turn on her radical base. What does she do? She does what Governor Hochul has always done. She sits on the sideline and goes to Bill's game wearing, little sneakers and harassing people at the gate. There's nothing she could do. This is actually snowballing at the perfect time. What do you think about what that looks like in 8 months after Mamdani is now the mayor of New York, and now you're pushing your message with the real life consequences of bad decisions?
Well, New Yorkers are going to see very quickly that this is an inexperienced mayor. This is someone who was a do-nothing assemblyman, a backbencher. This is someone who does not have the capacity, the experience, or the team, frankly, to run a city of New York City's size and scope. And this is someone who is going to hold Kathy Hochul hostage in the budget negotiations because the socialists are going to demand tax hikes from her and whatever their list of policy priorities are, whether it's defunding the police, whether it's as I said, making the affordability crisis worse by raising utility prices. One of the positions they put out immediately was seizing private property from small businesses. So this is very, very radical and far left. And people are going to experience months of this before they go to the, almost a year before they go to the polls next year in November. And that's why I think, of course, we're going to work to boost the turnout in upstate New York, which is critical. We will do that since I am an upstate New York native and because Kathy Hochul is just so despised because she's turned her back on where she came from in western New York. We will win in Long Island, which has been trending Republican, and we're going to make inroads in New York City. Lee Zeldin did a phenomenal job. He got above 30%. President Trump beat that and got 34%. We're going to seek to beat that because it's moving incrementally in our direction. And this is the cycle when we get this done, when people truly vote for common sense.
I'm with you 100%. I believe in you. I think for all the reasons you mentioned, but there's a secret sauce here, and that is your ability to confront and keep your composure as you always do. You know what you're talking about, able to articulate that. But I want to go back to those campaign commercials that you were making when you had Kathy Hochul under oath talking about the issues your campaign is run on, and you had that opportunity. It's not a debate. It was right there for the world to see. We watched the video and played it numerous times here. But you asked Kathy Hochul she didn't even know the names or the situations or claim to have her head in the sand about all of it. That to me is something that I don't think we've ever seen in a candidate running against this Democrat machine that you bring to the table.
Well, I've had a lot of different witnesses in front of me over the years, and I expected Kathy Hochul to be more prepared. New Yorkers expected that. She was an embarrassment, and it's saying a lot. When I say she's the worst governor in America, it's because it's true. And there were some other pretty bad governors up there, J.B. Pritzker from Illinois, Tim Walz from Minnesota, but Kathy Hochul takes the cake. Not only did she not know about these horrific crimes committed against New Yorkers, whether it was the burning of the woman alive on the subway by the illegal, whether it was the rapes of minors, or whether it was the murders of New Yorkers, she also didn't show any empathy or care about New Yorkers that a governor needs to represent and fight for. These are law-abiding New Yorkers who her policies are impacting their lives. Their families are mourning them and mourning these crimes that have happened. So it was a disgrace, and it was a wake-up call to her. New Yorkers are coming. She is unfit for this job. She is weak. She is not up to this task to save the state, and she's only made it worse.
Elise Stefanik, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for coming back into Buffalo. We're going to see you so many times during this campaign, and it's a huge part of victory is winning Western New York and Central New York, and all the people, Republicans, Independents, Democrats as well, that are all sick of the way New York State is going. Congratulations on this announcement and all your success, and we really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much, David. I'll be on again soon.
That is the great Elise Stefanik. And you can support this campaign, by the way. You can go to her website, donate, volunteer. I mean, look, it's super early in this race, but this is really, the announcement came over the weekend. But the fact here is that she's running for governor, and it's official. But that name recognition of going out there and every single day, just nonstop pressure on Kathy Hochul. Nonstop. And that's what it takes to turn the needle, to turn the tide here in New York State. We saw what Election Day, the blue wave across the board.